The chair recognizes an invaluable member of the committee from Florida, Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you really took the words right out of my mouth. I want to commend the chairman for the leadership he's shown on the 45 public hearings that we've had during this Congress on topics ranging from improper surveillance to torture and unlawful detention and signing statements. And to the degree that our colleagues and good friends on the other side of the aisle are lamenting those 45 hearings, it's simply because there was a 6-year backlog in which, in the first 6 years of this administration, there was virtually no oversight done by the Congress because the former leadership of this Congress ceded our oversight role and took a very hands-off approach and let the administration run amok and do whatever they wanted. So Lord knows that we certainly had a lot of makeup and catch-up work to do. And what I want to do is focus on the administration's abuse of presidential signing statements. I have to tell you that when I joined the Congress and joined this committee, I was surprised to learn that presidential signing statements even existed. I know since the early 19th century, American presidents have occasionally signed a large bill while declaring that they would not enforce a specific provision that they believed unconstitutional. I mean, I would argue, and I'm surprised over the years and would be interested in the scholarship at the table of thought on that, as to why there's never been any suit brought on those, because I don't really think there's anything in the Constitution that allows the President to interpret law or refuse to enact or follow a portion of the law. I know on rare occasions historians say that presidents have also issued signing statements interpreting a law and explaining any concerns about it, which also really seems baffling to me. But this president has issued almost 1,100 provisions of law in signing statements, and I just think that that stretches the abuse of power beyond imagination. And as someone who has spent 16 years in a legislative body, I jealously guard our congressional responsibilities and the system of checks and balances, and I really think signing statements are an assault on the legislative branch, basically the same as a line-item veto as what came out during the hearing that you had on that subject, Mr. Chairman, and that the Supreme Court ruled was unconstitutional, a line-item veto in our system of government. So with that overview, I did want to ask Congressman Barr this question, but I know he had to go. But I was also going to ask Mr. Schwarz the same question. Can you comment, and I'm really glad our colleague, Congressman Jones, brought up the subject on the first panel, but do you have an opinion about whether President Bush's use of signing statements is precedented in history, and or even a comment on some of the more egregious examples of signing statements?
Well, it's clearly unprecedented in its volume, and it's clearly unprecedented in its audacity, like saying when Congress asks that it be told if the President believes something is unconstitutional, he says, I'm not even going to tell you that. That just turns the Constitution upside down. The President's power is meant to be to veto laws. He can veto them for any reason, policy reason, legal reason, and then if the Congress passes the law, the President ought to enforce it. If he wants to send someone to court and have a challenge made, maybe, but not secretly decide to not fulfill his obligation to take care that the laws are faithfully executed.
I know you, in your publication, the Brennan Center for Justice's publication, 12 Steps to Restore Checks and Balances, you address this subject. Can you also address what you think the remedies are that are available to Congress?
Well, you do have ultimately the impeachment remedy. I expressed some skepticism about whether, given how much time has passed, how little time there is to go now, and whether this is the right time to do that. But you have the impeachment remedy, and Congress—
The impeachment remedy, I'm talking as a specific response to the abuse of signing statements?
You could, sure.
But short of that, what other remedies are available? Because, I mean, I'm not just— I mean, I think this President is engaged in horrific abuses of power, but, I mean, we also have the future presidents to deal with. And I mean, I know that Senator Specter sponsored legislation in the 109th Congress that would prohibit the practice of signing statements, and I know the chairman is supportive of that entire concept. So beyond impeaching this president, I'm taking a longer-term view.
I mean, could they be absolutely prohibited for the president not to be able to say, I think there's a problem? Probably would be a problem to say that you can't say there's a problem.
Okay.
But they're being abused, and you have Mr. Sherman, I think it was, had a quite interesting technique.
I mean, let me give you an example. When I was in the Florida legislature, there were instances in which the legislature went to the state Supreme Court to basically fight or challenge the abuse of our perceived abuse of power on specific examples that we believe the governor overreached. Is there a provision in which, short of passing a law to say that they are prohibited or narrowing their use, is there a provision in the Constitution or anything that would allow us as the legislative branch to do that?
Well, I'm not sure. I think the power of the political system should be used too. I mean, these are now clearly controversial, signing statements. They've clearly been abused in a way that's harmful to America. And I think it's quite appropriate for, in the political campaign, pressure to be put on the candidates for president to say, we're not going to.
Yeah, but I want more than that. I mean, I want some real legal, and Mr. Fein, I actually want to hear your comments.
Yes, I think what you can do through the appropriations powers.
This president has no shame. So, I mean, political pressure doesn't work.
No. I'm talking about pressure on the people who are running for president.
No, I know. But
What can be done is through the power of the purse. You simply say that there is no money that the president can utilize to execute any law where he's issued a signing statement saying that he's going to pick and choose which he chooses to enforce. So he then has to choose all or nothing. So he says, all right. So then, unlike the situation now, is he can take what he likes and then white out what he doesn't. There you tell him you have no money to enforce any law.
Look at that. That's when I'm glad that I'm an appropriator. That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that I personally can get involved in that. And Mr. Chairman, I thank you and yield back the balance of my time.